Very good. It's things like this that we do with our children that introduce them to information, really, but we're not feeding it to them as information. We're giving it to them as a joyful experience of living on the earth. But if you think about that song, those are the major parts of the plant. And later on, they'll talk about the plant, and maybe in 5th grade. And every year they will be doing a little bit with plants up until then. So by 5th grade, they're beginning to be able to organize it into a thing. And if you look at almost all of the songs and the stories and the poems that children learn in the kindergarten, they're all dealing with life on the earth. No golden sun, we saw this morning. How much we depend on the sun. How different our life would be without it. How different it is that the ozone layer is broken in Australia and everybody's sunburned here. You know, the sun is really, really important to us, and that's made to be important. Not in an intellectual way, but just in a reverent, appreciative way. Another thing that is really worth doing with children, besides the cooking, is some kind of handwork. And I think oftentimes that's difficult for modern people because we don't have to make our own clothes. We don't have to spin and weave and do all the things that people had to do 150 years ago. So we need to put that into our lives again. And I'm going to pass out some string. Pick a partner and just, you're going to do this twice so that each of you gets one of these to take home. Just line them up so that the ends are fairly even. But the yarn is straight between you. And then pull it tight. And one of you twists in one direction and the other twists in the other. Now just watch us for a minute and you'll get it. Which way do you want? Okay, on this way. Then when it gets really tight, one person holds it on the end, and the other person works the magic. So when you hit you like this, magic happens.
I love this.
It's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And then you can tie it over.
Shall we? Okay. Which way are you going, right? That way?
And it can be used as a bracelet, or you can make longer ones for a necklace. You can make really long ones, and 3 or 4 of them will turn it into a jumbo. Reins for your pony. Okay, go ahead and do it, and then do your partners, so that you can then tie a knot, overhand knot at the end.
I haven't got nice fingers or hands, Tom. Don't do that to me.
Alright.
You should have been on it. You didn't tell me.
Yeah.
How delightful.
Yeah.
They're good for,
I've got a
you
short
can use them for a pen holder, you can use it for a handle to a little bag, you can use it to tie many lesson books together, and you'll see that my form drawing book is held together with a twisty twirly is what these are called. And some people call them a twizzle. So, hair decoration. I have one on my suitcase to identify it as it comes through baggage. Nobody else has one. So that's helpful.
You wouldn't need.
So when you're working with your children at home,
You do it now, yeah.
until
In
they're
half and I'll
going on 7, you probably aren't going to have much of a formal time with them at all. And even if you do, it might be 15 minutes. But in many ways, it's better to be spontaneous, or seemingly spontaneous anyway. You know, do your candle lighting and your nature table thing as part of a meal. And you saw how proficient Erin was at lighting that candle. She's been doing it since she was very little. And there really isn't much danger of a child lighting a match, especially in Australia. You get these extra long matches, which are very nice. And that also diffuses the need for little boys to play with fire. If they get an opportunity to light a candle 2 or 3 meals a day, they're not going to want to do it. My daughter has had matches within her son's reach for most of his life. But he's been lighting the candles since he was about 3, and he just has no interest in playing with those matches. You know, when nobody's around, he just doesn't. So your nature table would consist of a candle, maybe some flowers, some crystals, sometimes little animals, and puppets and things that you might put on the table, seasonal things, seeds. And once you get into the routine of having this and having it change seasonally, your children will begin to find things and bring them to you and put them on the table. And don't feel bad if by the end of the season it gets a little rough on that table, because they'll play with them and the seeds will fall out and it'll look a little grassy and dusty looking. And then you can have a ceremony to end that season and start a new season on table. And don't be afraid to learn to make some of these little craft things. Your child will appreciate anything you make, even if you think it's really ugly. They will love it to death. And they'll watch you do it with great joy. I had a playgroup once, and the father decided he was going to make a doll for his son. And he bought a doll making kit for a very complicated doll. I mean, it was a really beautiful doll. And it took him probably 4 months to make this doll. And his son watched every stitch go into that doll. And when it was done, it was really beautiful. And this man had never sewn in his life before. He later became a surgeon, but so he practiced on the doll. But he made a beautiful doll. And it took some courage on his part to do it. But it was a wonderful thing. It was a wonderful project when it was done. One time, when I was still in foundation year of teacher training, I came home for Christmas vacation, and I went into my grandson's first grade class. I had a little shadow puppet theater, and I took it in there and did the little fairy tale star money for the children in front of a window, and it was too small, and it was a really raggedy-andy performance, by my standards anyway. But the children, and these children are TV-fed children. I mean, these children probably watch TV 6 hours a day. They go to school all day and they go home and watch TV. And I thought, they're not even going to listen to this. They looked on with awe as I did this. And 3 years later, I attended my grandson's third grade birthday party. And one of the children came up to me and said, "You're the lady who did that wonderful shadow puppet thing for us when we were in first grade." So children really appreciate something that's done really for them. And they realize that the TV isn't done for them. That millions of people are seeing it, and millions of people are making money off it. I mean, they don't know that intellectually, but in here they do know. And they do know that what you do and what you present and what you make for them is very special. They also see you learning something new, you know, having the courage to take on a new skill and learn it in front of them. And it gives them the courage to do the same thing. So many of my homeschooling clients, the one woman in particular was a very intellectual person. She'd always had really intellectual jobs, and when she decided to homeschool her children, she decided to take up spinning and weaving. And she now goes to big weaving expositions, and she said, you know, this is a gift from my children. I never would have done this if it were not for my children. And the same thing happened to me. When Tom was about 8, he decided he wanted to keep bees. And I thought, do I want to keep bees? But we ordered a beehive kit and ordered bees. And of course, our mail delivery person was a little chagrined when he walked up to the house with a box that was bzzz. And we put the bees in the hive and we began harvesting honey a few months later. Well, 25 years later, I was still keeping bees. Tom was long gone, and I still had beehives. And I even took them with me. I had a beehive when I lived in Colorado, and I had beehives again when I moved to Ohio. So, you know, that was something I never would have thought of. Bees were something that stung you, and you bought honey at the store. So those are the kinds of opportunities that our children give to us as they grow and as we pay attention to their needs. Finger plays are good things to do with your children. And if you look back to your own childhood, you probably remember some of them. Remember the Itsy Bitsy Spider? Oh, the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. Itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. Do you know that one?
Yes.
You do? Okay, so we don't need to do that. There's a wonderful little book called Finger Plays and Action Rhymes by Emily Paulson. It's available in most libraries. It's a reprint of a very old book. I think it originally came out in about 1903. Are any of you familiar with that?
Yeah.
I think it's a British book, actually. But it has some wonderful ones in it. I'm a Little Teapot, do you know that one?
Yeah.
If you think back to your own childhood, when children did play more, you'll begin to regenerate some memories of things that were meaningful to you. Here's the church You used to steeple open the doors and see all the people. Where is Thumbkin? Whoops, Johnny. Johnny, 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 whoops, Johnny, whoops, whoops, Johnny, 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 whoops, Johnny, whoops, Johnny, Johnny.
Oh, they love
See up
it.
Really? Tom, would you do Tony Chestnut?
Oh, Tony Chestnut? I'll try. I screwed him up last time. Tony Chestnut. Let's see.
I'll try
I
it.
better come up. You gonna do it?
Yeah.
You'll do it with me? Okay.
Yeah.
So you point to your toes. Tony Chestnut knows I love you. Tony knows. Tony knows. Tony Chestnut knows I love you. That's what Tony knows.
Go slowly. If you want to stand, you can. Tony Chestnut knows I love you. Tony knows. Tony knows. Tony Chestnut knows I love you. That's what Tony knows. And you can get faster.
Yeah. 5 times as fast. It gets a lot of fun.
There are some other verses, but I can't remember them.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that on one of the handouts that we get?
No, it won't. I just, it came to me.
It's on the video. Oh, yeah, that's right. I wasn't pointing at her.
Tom hopes to have videos available at the end of the weekend for people to purchase. The videos and the DVDs. So all of it will be on there. Gardening is another really wonderful thing to do with small children. Even if you just have a few pots on a windowsill, they don't need an acre. In fact, an acre is probably overwhelming to them and to you. But a couple of things on a windowsill, and you can grow things that grow fast, like beans sprout very quickly. Radishes sprout very quickly, and you can eat them within 2 or 3 weeks. Making sprouts to eat, alfalfa, seeds, mung beans, things like that you can put in salads and on sandwiches. And it's amazing, if you buy sprout, I remember when I would buy sprouts, my children wouldn't eat them. But when we started making them, they started eating sprouts because they made them. And Tom's next older brother developed a sprout route in the neighborhood. He would make sprouts in a big gallon jar, and then he would put them in little plastic bags, and he'd peddle them around the neighborhood for $1 a bag, which is pretty cheap for good sprouts. So those are the kinds of things that are really worth doing. Some herbs on the windowsill are good too. If you have a place where you can grow things, a little bit bigger things, a sunflower house is a lot of fun to do. You plant sunflowers in a square, and it might be, maybe 5-6 feet square. Leave a space for a door, and then plant morning glories in among them. And the sunflowers grow up, and you can kind of train them to lean towards the center. And then the morning glories go up. And if you get the ones that are the heavenly blue ones, the big blue morning glories, they'll climb up, and it makes a wonderful house. Probably you would only do it here in your winter. It's probably too hot to grow anything at this time of year. But it would be a fun thing to do. So, There's a book called Sunflower Houses by Sharon Lovejoy. Is that available in this country?
It's not available in Australia because there's a copyright problem.
Oh, really? So could they order it from Amazon or something like that? Or is it not allowed to even be shipped here?
It can be shipped here, but it can't be sold here
Yeah,
because of the copyright problem. It ran out of copyright in Australia 4 years ago, and they've been wrangling about it ever since.
oh. Well, she has a couple of books. It might be that you could find one in a library, if it got into the library before the copyright ran. There are a lot of other projects like this, bean houses and things like that. Beautiful things to do with children with gardens. Cooking is another wonderful thing. Let your small children cut up vegetables. They often do in a Waldorf kindergarten. Even the 3- and 4-year-olds use a sharp vegetable knife and cut up carrots. It's scary. You have to watch them pretty carefully. But usually they learn very quickly how to use a knife safely. And I've only, in my years of teaching groups of children, I've only had one child cut herself. She nicked her finger a little bit and it bled and got a Band-Aid on it. And when it stopped bleeding enough to go on cutting vegetables, she went on cutting vegetables and never did it to herself again. So we can expect our a little more of our children in the way of the physical than we would expect, but less in the way of mental stuff. You know, expect them to begin to do some physical things. Helping to sort the laundry, helping to set the table. And while these are not intellectual activities, they learn to count. They learn to know how many knives and forks and spoons you need for a family of 5 and how